Let's start this one off with a warning. Modifying your vehicle's lighting system could be annoying or dangerous to other drivers, not to mention illegal. So if you are going to upgrade or change the lighting system on your vehicle, first make sure it's legal in your area, and then also make sure that you do it properly. Greetings viewers, EricTheCarGuy here. Today's episode, I'm going to be swapping out the headlights on my 2004 Honda Element for these fancy projector beam type headlights. I got yelled at before because I put HID headlights in here, and with good reason. Let's get started with removing this front bumper, because that's the first part of the process we need to do in order to get these replaced. This is the box, in case you're curious. I obviously took everything out of the box. Inside that box were these two headlight assemblies. Additionally, there were these quote-unquote instructions, I will call them. This is it. This is all that came with it. Already there's a couple of issues. First, this says connect the black line to the negative electrode of the park signal marker lamp, and then it says connect the red line to the positive side of the park marker lamp. If you look at the assembly, there is no red wire. There's 3 black wires. Additionally, they talk at length in this little pamphlet in several different languages about moisture inside the headlight assemblies. Honestly, that doesn't inspire a whole lot of confidence for me that these headlight assemblies are not going to have moisture in them at some point, but you know, we'll hope for the best and do the installation anyway. These bulbs were also in the box. These are for the turn signals that go into here. Since these are clear lenses, they've given us some amber bulbs to go in there. These wires, these control these LEDs, and the black ones control the halo ring here, for lack of a better term. And I'm just going to hook the power probe up here, supply power and ground. You can see those 3 LEDs illuminate. Be quiet. And for the other side, the 2 black leads here, it doesn't seem to matter which way these are hooked up. I've done a little testing and playing around before I made the video. You can see how that ring lights up. It kind of doesn't seem to matter which way the current is run through it, although that does seem a little brighter. I could be wrong, but that does seem a little brighter. So I'll check this before I hook it up and make sure that I hook the positive and negative up so that it is as bright as possible. But here's the thing. They're asking us to tie these into the parking lights. So what I'm doing in effect is adding all of these into the circuit. LEDs, which is what these are, don't use a whole lot of amps, which is a good thing, because if these exceed the amps of the parking light assembly, then we're going to blow a fuse. So we have to be careful of that. And I'm going to carefully test everything once I get these installed and make sure that it's not going to blow any fuses or cause any damage to the harness before we commit to just hooking these into the parking light assembly like they recommend. Now, I've had this front bumper off more than once in videos, so I'm not going to cover this as much in detail. I'm just going to sort of gloss over the bumper removal, but I will post links in the description to the videos where I did remove the front bumper assembly on this Honda Element. Really, this is just a series of a lot of plastic clips for the most part. There's a few fasteners. Mine is missing. I had one here that's missing, but there's a 10 millimeter there, so look for these two on the side also. I'm pretty sure the length of these is all the same. These are all the ones from the lower part, and over here are all the ones from the upper part. I think they're all the same size. And if I could dig it up and put a link in the description to them, just in case you break one during removal. All right, now I'm busting out the power tools. Honestly, working under a vehicle, it's a good idea to put safety glasses on because the stuff that falls down in your face, it's good to keep it out of your eyes. I find impact tools are best for these. Like I said, there should be one here that's not on mine. And I coat these with anti-seize every time I take this off. Otherwise, it might not be so easy, as you'll see in the other videos I mentioned. Got another one over here. Now we can remove the lower shield. Store it here. Lastly, we got these 8mm things here. These have also been a problem in the past for me because of what they go into, and I'm experiencing that right now. Once again, the details of this are covered in other videos. There's one just like it on the other side. This side, fortunately, is not a problem. You might just pull this away a little bit like that. Now I'm ready to remove the front bumper skin, and I have to be careful. In my case, I have fog lights that are attached to it, so I'm going to have to make sure that I don't damage those electrical connections and just yank the whole front of this off of here. So I'm just going to knock it loose one side at a time. Pull straight out, and you got to get past that one piece in here that might hang you up. Okay, there we go. One side, and now this side. All right, now I can very gently remove this, and I think I should have plenty of wire just to set it down like this. I'm just going to disconnect these. Same over here. And the front bumper is mine. I've already taken the liberty of squirting my fasteners with some penetrating oil. I haven't gotten the ones obviously down behind the bumper, but my element's kind of rusty, so you might want to soak everything with some penetrating oil before you start removing fasteners. Now normally, you would just have one thing to unplug, well actually two things to unplug on the back of the headlight assembly, and that is the one plug into the headlights, and then there's also a parking light that's screwed into the back. In my case, I have these HIDs installed, which I'm going to be removing now. That adds a layer of complication that you may not be encountering. So actually what I'm showing here might be a little more difficult than what you see. Easiest way to get to the back of the headlight is to remove this piece off the airbox assembly, and that you can just pull off like this. Gives you plenty of access to the back of the headlight. Here's the headlight plug-in. This should be all you should need to unplug, so that would just unplug from the back of the headlight and you would be good to go. Like I said, I've made mine a little more complicated. Sorry to keep bumping you around there. And then there's this other bulb. Actually, we don't even have to pop the bulb out. We could just disconnect the electrical connector, just like that. And the headlight assembly, electrically, is now disconnected from the vehicle. Now I'll remove the fasteners so I can get the headlight assembly out, starting with this one. These are 10mm. Really grateful that came out. Once again, if it's rusty like this, strongly recommend the use of impact tools. Next up, we have the one on the side. Yes. And then lastly, the one underneath here. Yay! Now we should be able to pull the headlight assembly out now. Pull it straight out. Watch out for, looks like the wire is just attached, the harness down in here. That's all that is. Otherwise, it's free. I've got one more thing to swap over, and that is this metal piece here that goes up on top of, well, actually holds the top part of the bumper in place. Yes. I am very, very grateful that that worked out the way it did. Now we're going to have to transfer these clips over because the new assemblies don't come with them. Keep these around, don't throw them away. In fact, you're also going to need one more thing off of this, and that is this bulb, which, as stated, we're going to have to swap out for one of the amber ones. Okay, now I'm going to transfer the clips over. Give them a little bit of a squeeze. They'll stay in place, but it doesn't hurt. Okay, see that little notch there? Goes into that, and that one goes there. Should have had like a rag or something soft under here before, just so that I wasn't laying it directly down onto the table, just to avoid any scratches. All right, I'm gonna hand tighten these. So yes, I used an impact to remove, but I'm just gonna tighten these with a 1/4 inch ratchet. You may notice this bar with this zip tie. I think this is here for shipping because there's no way you can seal up the back of this with that in place. There's just no way that it can happen. So I'm going to say that they most likely put this in here for some kind of shipping purpose to keep something in place. And I'll follow my sword so you don't have to. But cutting that zip tie and pulling it out, setting that other stuff aside. That way you could, in theory, put this back on here to seal the back of this up. Okay, there's one more thing that we need to install here, and that's the turn signal / marker light. This guy, but we need to switch it over to the amber bulbs, and this will just pop out like that. Put the new one in. Clicks. That should do. Before I get this in here, these wires I actually stripped a little bit so that I could do my testing. Now I'm going to take it a step further and pull some more of the insulation back, so I'm just going to strip back a good amount so I can get more of that wire exposed. Do the same to these. I've got an extra step that I need to do to remove the old ballast and things for the old HIDs, so I'm going to do that now. But you will likely not have to worry about any of this. And some of you might be thinking, if I'm going to do electrical work, I might as well disconnect the negative battery cable. I'm going to tell you that's not a bad idea, but once the headlights are unplugged from the vehicle, there's really no danger of any issues. For all of you that have told me in the past that I need to use black zip ties because these succumb to UV rays, well, these have been on here for like 3 years now, and I still had to cut them off. They have not disintegrated and turned to dust. HID system uninstalled. I'm going to use this marker light as the source for the I guess halo or LED bulbs inside the assembly. But I don't really want to mess with all the wiring and everything up inside the fender for that. As you can see, it's all looped around and everything and sort of in a difficult area. So I'm just going to follow this down. If you follow it down, it actually comes down to right here. And this is where I'm going to splice in to the wires for the LEDs for the headlight assembly. Here are the 3 fasteners that I removed that held the assembly in place. I am going to liberally coat them with some anti-seize. Now, if you live in some place where you don't have to worry about rust, good for you. Probably don't even have to worry about this step, but me, my element is crusty rusty. I'm going to take these wires and fish them down through this opening so that I can access that parking light wiring. And this stuff, I just need to make sure ends up back here, although I can make my life a little bit easier by plugging in this connection now for the parking light. This I can do after that's in, but I want these wires to go down through that opening. And then I'm going to install the headlight assembly. There are a couple of guides that you'll notice hanging out. One is up there, one is back down here. So that slides into there. The upper one slides in here. Make sure nothing is pinched. Then you can start adding your fasteners. I'm going to start with this one on top. All right, now the one on the side. I'm going to wait and tighten all these down after I get them all installed. And now the last one. I must say, as far as aftermarket parts go, this stuff seems to be lining up nicely. Once again, I'm going to tighten with hand tools. And here's the electrical connection for the headlight. Now that everything's all plugged in, even though we don't have the parking light stuff hooked up, I'm going to try the headlight just to see how it works. It's looking good. Let's try that turn signal. Yeah, works great. About the brights. There we go. Nice. Let's get those halos hooked up. Okay, this is the wires, I should say, coming down for the parking light assembly. Now that we have the wires exposed, we're gonna cut them. I know, right? Doesn't seem right, but it's done now. These are a pair. So this black one definitely goes to this black one. Like one way seemed brighter than the other, so I'm going to get my power probe and hook it up and see if one way is brighter than the other. Honestly, it really does seem about the same looking at it straight on like this. Maybe that way's a little brighter. Maybe. We also need to make sure that we hook the light up. It was already here. It's the only way we're gonna know if it's gonna pull too much. Well, it's not pretty, but at least we'll be able to test the theory. And I'm not going to commit to this until I have the other side hooked up, because I'm certain that both sides are both on the same circuit, so we want to fully load it up before we determine whether or not we're going to commit to doing it this way. So far, so good. This doesn't seem any dimmer than usual, and this stuff seems to be okay. The headlights are on a separate circuit. Yeah, we're good. So let's get the other side installed and see what we're dealing with. Once again, keep an eye out for any stuff that might still be connected. I'm going to fish the wires through this opening here that comes out underneath behind the washer reservoir. It's similar to the other side. I just got to get a little more creative as far as where the wires go through. These wires aren't quite as long as I'd like them to be, so I'm going to take a different route. I just discovered this behind the washer reservoir coming out over around this way. Now, I don't like routing these this way because, you know, if they get pinched or something like that in the event of a collision, well, there goes, well, this is just the marker lights, so it's not really that important. Looks like I'll be coming over here to connect this stuff up, but for now, let's finish attaching the headlight. Okay, let's try this out. So far, so good. I mean, it doesn't seem to pull it down any more amps than it was before. This seems just as bright. Doesn't seem to have been compromised at all. Let's try the turn signal on the headlights and stuff. All seems to work fine. That does look cool though, doesn't it? I want to be able to connect and disconnect this headlight at will. So in other words, I want to be able to remove this headlight assembly without having to worry about soldering and unsoldering these wires. So I've thought about it a little bit and I've come up with a solution for this. We're going to have 2 powers and 2 grounds coming in here. So these are our powers, these are our grounds. Going to do the same thing over here. And I'm going to get these blade connectors and put one on here that I can plug the powers into and one that I can plug the grounds into. So in other words, this will plug in like this. So that way if I ever need to remove the headlight assembly, I'll be able to do so. Why don't we take this one step further and mix up the connectors so that you can't mix up power and ground. You can only plug them in one way. What would be really great is if I had some weatherproof connectors, but I don't. I just have these cheap ones for now. What I'm talking about is they have this cover over the outside. Why don't we test these? Let's see if I can find some way to insulate those. Well, it works. Now I think what I'll do is I'll wrap everything up real nice in electrical tape, make a nice clean installation, and do the other side. Semi-pro. It works. Yes, the bumper magically found itself back on the element. As far as reinstalling the bumper, it's just the opposite of what I showed you as far as removal goes. Run that part of the video backwards, and you got it. Once you're completed with the installation, make sure you aim the headlights. That way they are effective and safe for other drivers. This model only has an up-down adjustment that's located here. I've done other videos about aiming headlights that I'll link in the description for you. Well, there we have it. The installation of projector beams on a 2004 Honda Element. Now, I know this video basically covered the specifics of this vehicle. However, modern vehicles, in my experience, pretty much work the same way, in that you remove the bumper skin, then that usually gives you access to the fasteners that hold the headlight assembly in. And that's mainly what you're going to need to do if you're going to do an upgrade like this. Figure out how to get your bumper skin off, and you should be pretty much home free from there. Additionally, I had to do some wiring, which I used the side marker lights. That seems to have worked out fine. It's actually been about a year since I did this installation, so I know that everything has worked out fine from everything that you saw that I did in the video. Some of you might be questioning if there's moisture in these housings. Initially there was, like the first couple of weeks there was a little bit of moisture, but since then I haven't really had issues. And as I said, I've had these on here for about a year now, so if we're going to see moisture, we would be seeing it. A couple of things that I wish I would have done differently. I wish I would have used weather pack connectors for the electrical connectors down inside of here. That would have been nice. It helps. Those are designed to help keep out dirt and debris. What I did with the electrical tape probably would work okay. As far as soldering the wires together before I inserted them into the connector, I don't necessarily regret that because I was combining two wires together. However, I've done a lot of electrical work and connections since then, and I've adopted the philosophy of just inserting the wire into the connector, using the proper crimping tool, and away we go. In fact, I did a video about that, which I'll link in the description for you. Like I said, there haven't been any issues with these headlights since I've installed them. Now, part of the reason that I did install these projector housings was because I'd also done a video about halogen versus LED versus HID, and many of you mentioned that you wanted to see that test done with projector beams. Now, I'm just a set of HID bulbs away from having everything I need to do that test, which I will try to do in the near future now that I have these all set up. I'll put links to that video in the description in case you want to check that one out. But one last thing I want to leave you with, as far as modifying the lighting on your vehicle, make sure you check with your local laws and find out if it's even legal to do so. In some places it's not. And in fact, especially if you have halogen housings, it's really frowned upon if you use HIDs, or in many cases illegal, or LEDs in those halogen housings. So please be aware of that. So check your local laws and find out if it's even possible to upgrade the lighting on your vehicle before you embark on an endeavor like this. Once again, there'll be links in the description to additional information, so please check there. If you have automotive questions, there'll be a link in the description to EricTheCarGuy.com, which is where I ask you go to get those automotive issues addressed. Aside from that, I close my videos with be safe, have fun, stay dirty. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.